Hello again everyone, I'm Paul the Nitro Skywars and welcome to this edition of the Nitro Corner. Today is Saturday and it's time for part 1 of our weekend report, the Smackdown report. So let's get right into it. Excuse me there. And we begin the show with Christian coming out there saying that he don't need the peeps anymore. He is tired of this peeps. The peeps turned against him, and that he is through with them. He brings in Michael Cole, and he thinks the fans were controlling him when he lost the heavyweight championship of the world to Randy Orton, and he wants another shot at the world heavyweight title. Well, I guess that makes Christian a heel now. We'll just see how that comes into play later on in the night. Moving on now, we see the Core. Our first opening contest involves the Core as they lose to the Uso brothers and Ezekiel Jackson. Once again, Wade Barrett walks out on Heath Slater and Justin Gabriel. Well, that's going to come into play a little bit later on as well on SmackDown. But, excuse me, still battling the cough there a little bit. Bottom line is Ezekiel Jackson and the Uso brothers pick up a big win over the Core. Next up, Teddy Long in the back talking about some horse racing on the phone when Sheamus comes in there, interrupts Mr. Long, stating that he was ripped off last week against Randy Orton in the world title match. Well, and that he wanted Christian. Well, Theodore Long said no to the match with Christian, but he did give Sheamus an opportunity at Randy Orton in a no disqualification match for the main event. Sheamus agreed to it, and that would be later on in the show. Next up, speaking about the Core, as we mentioned, Wade Barrett walking out on Heath Slater and Justin Gabriel. Well, it is now official. The Core has broken up. Justin Gabriel and Heath Slater said that Wade Barrett can go do it on his own. The Core is finished. It started out with Ezekiel Jackson leaving, and now Heath Slater and Justin Gabriel. And really, who is to blame for the Core breakup? You're looking at him, the Intercontinental Champion, Wade Barrett, who thinks he's above everyone else in the Core. It was not all about individuals. It was all about Wade Barrett. Next up, Jinder Mahal scored another win over Trent Beretta. He continues his winning ways in the WWE on the SmackDown roster. Next up, AJ scores an upset win over Tamina in the Divas division. Finally, a first win for Natalya as well as an advisor. I consider it a minor upset as far as I'm concerned. Congratulations to AJ. Next up, Randy Orton comes out there and he immediately calls out Christian, saying if you want it, come bring it. Christian refuses to do it, gets in his car and drives off, but before he does that, he gets what he wanted, a World Heavyweight title shot. Randy Orton agreed the rematch will happen at Capital Punishment. But Christian, though, would not leave the building that night. A little bit later on, you'll see how Christian became a big part of that main event. Next up, Sin Cara scores a disqualification win over Ted DiBiase because of the interference of Cody Rhodes. And Daniel Bryan makes a say, well, Theodore Long does not like the interference, so he made it a tag team match, and Sin Cara teamed up with Daniel Bryan to score the win over Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase. Next up was the Obama spoof, I'm going to skip it, if you don't mind. It was stupid to start out with once again. And then it is our main event, and in what I would consider another upset. The Celtic Warrior Sheamus defeats Randy Orton in a brutal, I mean a brutal, no disqualification match. This has to go down once again as another candidate for Match of the Year. In the end, Christian interfered, nailing Orton with the championship belt, but how many near falls in that match was there? The physical toll that these two men went through, that was a great main event for SmackDown and a consideration, in my opinion, for the Match of the Year. So that ended SmackDown for this week. Now, overall, my thoughts on SmackDown, This week was a very good show with an awesome main event with Sheamus defeating Randy Orton in a major upset, as far as I'm concerned, in a no disqualification match. That's it for part 1 of the weekend report. I will be back in a little bit with part 2 of the weekend report, the Nitro Top 10. Very interesting this week on the Nitro Top 10, to say the least. Until then, I'm Paul the Nitro Skyver saying, so long, everybody.